The Benjamin Dixon Show is only possible with listener support. Go to www.patreon.com/The BPD Show.
Good morning and welcome to the Benjamin Dixon Morning Show. It is Wednesday, February 16, 2022. And if it is hump day, that means it is Solidarity Wednesdays with our friend, our sister from another mister, Nomiki Konst. She is already here this morning. Good morning to you, Sister
morning.
Nomiki. It is always a pleasure to start off Wednesday mornings bright and early talking about how we can work in solidarity for our common goals. Good morning to you.
Well said. And what a way to start a morning. Good morning. How's everything going over there?
It's going, I think everybody on the team this morning had something happen to their computers this morning. So we are running a little bit behind. But that said, Dr. Carl Mack will be joining us momentarily. We also have Georgia Fort, who's coming in on the clock to cover all the news covering Black Lives, as well as Rebecca Zor, DJ Exclusive. We have the full show for everyone this morning. Good morning to everyone on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, and to our family at Activism. I want to start this morning, Nomiki. I want to start with the news coming out of Ukraine, which it's giving me, I'm feeling good this morning, but cautious. Mm-hmm. I'm feeling better. Let me say it like that. I have been keeping an eye on what's happening in Ukraine for a minute. And it has not looked good because it has been a game of brinksmanship in a way. Putin really seeing how far he can go. And now it looks as though whatever goals he had, we're hoping he's met them, and now he's backing off the brink. At least that's what some footage is saying. What are your thoughts about the breaking news overnight that we may have a rollback from this confrontation that everyone seemed to think it was inevitable?
Well, I'm really curious what's really happening behind the scenes.
Yeah.
I mean, this is one of those situations where you can only project based on behavioral patterns and basically war games. I immediately thought yesterday, when folks were talking about things escalating, and obviously those in Ukraine, there's been a lot of reports from folks in Ukraine trying to keep things very calm. So, because Ukraine literally means I believe it's on the edge. When translated, meaning on the edge of Russia, and Russia, I think the Russian identity is very associated with Kyiv because that's where the origin of Russia, that's where Russia originated. So there's a lot of dynamics, obviously, on the ground there. But I can understand why the Ukrainian leader Zelensky wanted to keep things calm, because you just don't know. And they're also this geopolitical, hotspot. It involves oil and gas, it involves NATO, it involves Russia flexing its muscles at a time where they're being weakened. And I think of, it was yesterday when it was pretty, things were escalating quite a bit. I remembered, and I'm going to Cuba on Saturday, so I'm going back, into history. Mm-hmm. And I remember when, for those who obviously, have studied Cuban history, please forgive me because I'm not an expert, but I remember when Castro was, going into the mountains of Cuba, and he was surrounded. His troops were surrounded by Batista's army, and they threw up their white flag. That's what Castro did in an instinct. He threw up his white flag, but he didn't actually throw up his white flag. What he had been doing during that delay process was he was organizing troops in other parts of Cuba.
That's right. That's right.
And I think of that right now because, and obviously, Castro won the war, and, with very few men, very brilliant military tactics. And I think we can't underestimate Putin. And I know a lot of people on the left will say, well, we're really bad. And it's like, yes, we are imperialists, and so are they.
Yes.
They jail their journalists. We do a lot of bad things, and we've done a lot of bad things in our history.
Yeah.
And I think there is a tone shift between a neocon president and a neoliberal president.
That's right. And not just a tone shift. Well, we'll get to the rest of this in a second. I want to drop this clip here. Let's take a listen to this report that gives us a lot more details as it pertains to this potential drawdown of potential hostilities. Let's take a listen in.
And Ukraine, some major developments today. The Ukrainian government reports cyber attacks have hit its defense ministry and two of its largest state banks. At the same time, Russia appears to pull some troops back from the Ukrainian border in steps forward to de-escalate. And this morning, Russian President Vladimir Putin weighs in on the state of diplomacy.
Ukraine's National Cybersecurity Agency has said that this attack has meant that the Ministry of Defense website, the Armed Forces website, and the website of two of its major banks are down. They're currently without service, but these are the public-facing parts of the website. Okay. It's unclear what other parts are down, but they're not currently accessible. The agency's also said that people's money is safe, so that's not been accessed. Obviously, this has got people worried because these are the kinds of websites you might target if you're planning to do something like attack a country.
What did Putin say with regard to, is he really, is this diplomacy pushing forward toward that, a real possibility? It's kind of hard to figure out what he means at this point.
It absolutely is, Kira. It's always difficult with Vladimir Putin. I mean, he did give his sort of biggest hint yet that this troop withdrawal is real. He actually called it a partial withdrawal. But he did say, how will Russia act next? According to the plan, which was slightly kind of Bond villain-esque of him, I thought. It's not clear what the plan is. Now, Russia says that they are partially withdrawing. There are videos online that show that troops are partially withdrawing. But at the same time, the United States and others are warning that there's not really any massive evidence so far that huge numbers of troops are pulling back yet. And we've had this vote here in Moscow by the parliament here to give Putin the right to essentially recognize the independence of Russian-backed separatist areas in Ukraine, which a lot of people thought, if that vote went through, that would be preparing the groundwork for war.
The threat of an invasion is not over, despite Russia's claim that it's pulling back some of its troops from Ukraine's border. That's the warning today from President Biden. He says Russian forces are still very much a threatening position, and an invasion remains distinctly possible. President Biden says the United States has not verified Moscow's claim that some military units are headed back to their bases. The Russian government releasing this video of Russian tanks claiming that they're leaving their positions near the Ukrainian border. And here's more Russian government video that purportedly shows Russian tanks and armored vehicles being loaded onto a train. U.S. and NATO officials have been skeptical. America's ambassador to NATO says the last time Moscow made a similar claim that it was de-escalating the crisis, it turned out to be false.
Well, I mean, there's plenty of skepticism to go around. I prefer this stage of the developments where there's skeptical caution, but at least we're not in the stage of the bellicose. I'm glad that we don't have the belligerent language coming from this neoliberal president that I'm sure and I have to give a caveat here. Donald Trump was a different breed. I want to say Donald Trump, but the only way to really understand Donald Trump is to compare how he handled North Korea, his bellicose language, like pushing us to the brink. I am so glad that we don't have that style president in power. I don't think Trump would have done that with Putin, obviously. But in this case, it is extremely important that we don't have someone who is reckless with their words and pushing us, our side of the equation, closer and closer to the brink of war. Now, Nomiki, let me ask you this question. Why is it in conversations in progressive or leftist circles, people really can't get the idea that, you know what, there are more than one imperialist power on the face of this planet. And in this case, we have to be able to look at this with nuance, or else we actually are helping imperial powers ourselves.
I mean, I think there's a lot of reasons why in some.
I'm so sorry. I want to add Dr. Carl Mack into the conversation too. I want to bring him on the screen since I know he's ready. Good morning. Then Sister Konst, go ahead with your reply.
Good morning, Dr. Mack.
Good morning.
So I think there's a lot of reasons here. I think some of it, let's just be honest, and it's a very uncomfortable truth, but you can see it all over online, is I do think, and it was acknowledged here, Russia's been very sophisticated with its technological investment, whether it's their hackers who have hacked the financial system or their propaganda unit. And that's not a new concept. We do it. They've done it. We did it throughout history. Everybody does it. So, I think there are whether it's podcasts or Twitter accounts, or
Yeah.
frankly, even some leaders in this, country. Congressman from Arizona, Paul Gosar, he met with Bannon and some Russian propagandists in Europe. I mean, we have to be very conscious of where this messaging comes from. I'm always suspicious of folks who just see America as an imperialist power, but do not understand the current state of imperialism around the world. All can be bad at the same time. I'm not
That's
saying,
right.
but it does require nuance. I also want to mention one thing. They discussed the financial hacking of the Ukrainian
Right.
financial institutions, and I think this is sort of some of his leverage. Is Putin has been able, in a very sophisticated way, to basically use the weapon of technology as leverage. Right now, the EU is not messing around, and they have sanctioned his bank accounts and his and many of his oligarch friends, their bank accounts and their holdings in whichever ways they can, in the EU. That's a lot, actually. That's a huge deal because they don't want to put sanctions on the Russian people, of course.
Dr. Mack, I wanted you, I know you just jumping in the conversation, but we've been talking about Ukraine for a minute. What are your thoughts about the, I don't want to call it alleged drawdown. I'm hopeful. I hope this is going in that direction, but we have to be skeptical. What are your thoughts about all this?
Well, and good morning, Nomiki, and good morning, Brother Ben. One of the things that, I kept trying to ascertain, why in the world would you move 100, 150,000 troops, all of your equipment there, and then now you're going to do a drawback? Because that costs a lot of money. And it's not like the Russian economy is on top of the world here. So one thing leads to another. If we take a look at what's happening in this country, inflation is at a runaway pace, right? And so one of the things that goes hand in hand with inflation is oil prices. Well, what is the number one product for the Russian economy? It is their oil, right? So when Putin moves towards the border of Ukraine, that's why now we've been seeing oil prices spike. So oil prices right now are sitting at almost $95.50 a barrel. Trust and believe, as those oil prices go up, and they're going up around the world, you got to know that the Russian economy is benefiting from it. So through this whole thing, it was very shocking to me. And I'm with you, Ben. I'm hopefully optimistic that this pullback is for real. But in the case of it, what if this whole maneuvering on top of whatever Putin's idea was of reassembling the Soviet bloc also had to do with his ability to say, I need a spike in my economy. I know that if I move troops there, the whole world is going to see it. And again, now you get this spike in oil prices as a possibility. So it's just one of the things that certainly has crossed my mind.
That is not far-fetched. I mean, that's actually a really sensible move. If you have to have a toolkit, I would say that's definitely one in his disposal. Nomiki, I want you to get the last thought on this, because there's a couple other stories I want to get your insight on.
I think that's a brilliant take, and keep in mind, Putin's doing what so many different CEOs, including oil companies, are doing around the country, is artificially inflating so that he's very unpopular right now in Russia. So, that's a good thing to say, look, I've stimulated the economy and we're strong, and whatever he does, he gets on a horse and rides around shirtless.
Well, all in all, if this holds, that is a good thing for everybody. So I hope that it holds, and that it actually has good results, because like the reporter was saying in the breakdown, we don't know what the rest of his plan is. So we have to see and be on standby to see what the rest of his plan is.
Ben, go ahead. Let me say this. Nomiki said it, and I don't want us to overlook this. She said, just like CEOs are doing here. There's a report right now that CEOs have artificially raised their prices simply because they can, because of the amount of money that the feds in this country injected into our economy during the pandemic shutdown. That's why we're seeing these prices artificially go up. And there, you got analysts who are just looking at companies' reports and hearing them basically say, in case in point, Chipotle says, hey, it's a wonderful thing that in us raising our prices, our customer base don't seem to be bothered by it. So the same way that Putin could possibly have made this move to spike oil prices. We're watching CEOs in this country do the exact same thing because Tyson's Chicken, Chipotle, go down the list when you take a look at these reports. So this imperialism that you talk about doesn't just exist in other countries, but we're watching the greed of capitalism basically hurt the American people today with this runaway inflation.
Absolutely.
And it's a weapon. I'm sorry, just one more thing.
No, go for it.
It is a weapon against NATO. It's a weapon against the EU. The EU says we're putting sanctions on you. He comes back and he says, "Great, I've got hackers on the financial system, and I'm also going to make your oil, which they're dependent on in the EU, more expensive."
That's right.
I want us to really think like this. It's taken this amount of time. This is a major step, but Nomiki, I'm a little afraid of not even the backlash so much, but the judicial backlash to try to make something like this never happen again. And so I'm a little apprehensive about celebrating, but this is clearly a monumental decision.
It's historic. It's monumental. I think the only caveat is that it is a settlement. So I'm very curious what would have come out if this was a public trial. If during discovery there was information about, for instance, their connection to the NRA, whether or not they fund different efforts. I mean, that kind of stuff, whether it was relevant or not. I mean, it might have been relevant because of the way Sandy Hook was played out in the media. But I think you're right. I think, we have to be very careful. With that being said, it's to use it as a precedent. I mean, who knows? Republicans just goes too far. I mean, they don't even take but this is a very tough one to use as a precedent if you're not operating at a sociopathic level.
Well, Nomiki and Ben, I'll tell you what, when I saw the story break, the first thing that came to my mind is absolutely is historic. It's a precedent. And you got to believe that, what we know is that the NRA and the gun industry has fought. They have used all of their might to fight against cases like this. Yeah. No different. So the parallel to me was what the tobacco industry used to do. The tobacco industry absolutely knew the harmful effects of cigarettes, but they fought with everything they had. I don't care how small the case was, let alone how large it was. And the NRA did the absolute same thing. So I'm trying to say to myself, figure that Remington would pay $73 million to lose a case like this has absolutely opened the gateway, opened the doors.
I hope so.
I believe for us to get sensible legislation, because trust and believe, when you look at it, wasn't just Remington that paid, it was everybody who funds them, the insurance companies, the banks, anybody, Wall Street, anybody that invests in this industry. They now have a wake-up call based on this lawsuit. So even if this lawsuit hadn't been as large as it was, it's not the size of the lawsuit that they're most afraid of. It's the mere fact that they lost this lawsuit, and culpability and accountability was placed on Remington and all who are part of their supply chain, their financial aspects. That is one of the big aspects of this case, no different than it was with the tobacco industry.
Absolutely. And Dr. Mack, as you mentioned the tobacco industry, it reminds me of what's happening with COVID as it pertains to these corporations, right? The most prevalent sign that I have seen throughout the entirety of the pandemic has been in the state of Georgia, was the one warning people going into every store, into every corporation, that this corporation will not be liable if you die of COVID-19. I don't know if they had those signs in your cities respectively, but every single company, it didn't matter whether it was a grocery store or a dry cleaners or a major corporation, they got immunity during the pandemic from people dying. And it just reminds me of how much leverage corporations have with our lives in this country. And it's just time after time, we've seen corporations get away with the damage they do to real life. They take lives with these products. They get away with it. And I'm with you, Dr. Mack. I hope this continues to open the floodgates of accountability.
Well, Ben, one of the things that one of the family members said that was just so, it was so strategic. I don't want to use the term strategic, and Nomiki, I think we're all having the same situation of talking about this on the heels of this type of precedent being set at such a tremendous loss. So I certainly don't want to sound insensitive.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that to these parents, 73 million, they would gladly give that back to have their children back, to have their loved ones back. So I get it. But one of the things that they said that they were pleased with was to be able to also bring out all of the internal documentation that speaks to, when these gun manufacturers make the kind of weapons they make, what is the marketing and strategic plan of who it is that they're targeting, that they want to buy these types of weapons. So, being to that point, when folks make a raid on things and you don't have sensible legislation, in effect, this lawsuit says that if you allow one of our weapons to get inside that or in the hands of someone who is deranged, and you haven't done that, we could be held culpable for that. Trust and believe.
Yes,
they're gonna want to be behind that, because I certainly, if I made a product and I knew it would to be as dangerous as it is, and no matter who gets it, somehow it could come back to me and not just stay within that individual, you're gonna be on the front line of trying to bring about some change. At least that's what logic says to me.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Nomiki, tell everyone what you have coming up today. I know I'm going to be with you later on today for Solidarity Wednesdays, but tell everyone how they can get up with you and support what you have going on.
We have you every Wednesday. We air at 8 p.m. Eastern on YouTube and on Twitch, and you can check us out on all of the different podcast platforms. The Nomiki Show. It's pretty easy. There's nobody else that. There are people who have my name, but they don't have a show. Who do we have on today? We have Dr. Osgood. We're going to talk about COVID and what's about COVID, the state of COVID. It's just, where we are and, whether or not there's a lot of mask mandates that have gone down, especially in New York State. Big conversations about that, whether it's safe. The CDC obviously is offering conflicting information. Washington, D.C., I don't understand what's happening here, but they just released their mask mandate and vaccination mandate, so you can go to like a stadium, and I don't understand the logic behind that.
Coachella. Yeah.
And then we also have Julia Doubleday. We're going to talk some foreign, international, probably Ukraine, and Napoleon de Legend, who comes on every Wednesday.
I gotta get Napoleon on the show. Tell him I said what's up. I hit him up on Twitter. Nomiki, thank you so much. Before we get out of this segment, Dr. Mack, is Google nearby?
She's waiting on you, man.
Hey, well, let's check it out.
Always there.
Hey, Google, what happened today in Black history?
On February 16, 2001, the National Hockey League honored retired player Willie Aree at the 6th annual Willie Aree All-Star Weekend. Willie Aree was born on October 15, 1935, in Fredericton, New Brunswick, Canada. Drafted by the Boston Bruins of the National Hockey League in 1958, Aree became the first Black person to play in an NHL game. The first Black American to play in the NHL was Val James with the Buffalo Sabres. Adapted from Black Heritage Day 4 calendar by author, lecturer, and civil rights activist Dr. Karl Mack.
So there you have it, Nomiki. In a sense, we're now looking at the Jackie Robinson of hockey.
Look at that. Hey, as a Buffalonian, I love to hear that Buffalo Sabres part too.
There you go.
Thanks,
we'll be
guys.
back with more of the Benjamin Dixon Morning Show right after this. Thanks so much, Nomiki.
Thank you all. Have a good morning.
Good morning, Nomiki.
I think I let my guard down. Certain things ain't the same now.
Good morning, good morning, good morning. Y'all think we it is. It's your boy James From Williams is on the scene. DJ Exclusive is in the building, y'all. Good morning, everybody.
But in my heart ain't got nothing back. Now I'm stuck in the rain, dealing with all this pain. Why you gotta do me like that? Don't say you love me, then go and leave me. It can't get ugly, trust and believe me. Say it to myself, look so deceiving. Trying to fight back this far from easy. I've seen your hands. Delilah, don't you know I've seen your hands.
Good morning, y'all. Good morning, good morning. Glad to see everybody this morning. I hope y'all are ready for a good show, man. Y'all make sure y'all keep it locked and stay tuned here on the Benjamin Dixon Morning Show. We got more coming up next with On the Clock, the Georgia Fort. Good morning, Georgia. Y'all stay tuned.
Why did I open up? She taking way too much. Put in my heart ain't got nothing back. I'm feeling so ashamed. I fell into your game. Why you gotta do me like that? Don't say you love me. Then go
morning, everybody. D Sobers, Lauren Estrada, Tyra G, Miss Duru, good morning. Courtney the SLP, hey lady. Alicia, good morning. Elizabeth Lanza, Boondock Dragon, Anna Hart, Sunny Wright, Indian Brown, good morning. Tiger Johnson, what's going on? I said Tiger Johnson. Tiger, what's going on? Brenda Johnson, good morning. Juanita, good morning to you. XO, Bob, what's going on, Bob? Snack Master, good morning. Good morning, Mama, Daddy. Good luck to you, Mama. I know you got this. Rick Woods, Truth the Dragon, good morning. Roll the Dragon, good morning. On they go. Boondocks, G-Man, Ted Z, Kelly, you know, Tiger Johnson. Y'all make sure y'all stay tuned, man. We got both coming to make it right. It does, yeah. Tiger Johnson for the win on NASCAR 2022. Hollywood, good morning to you, Hollywood. Hey, Miss Sophia, good morning. Peyton Henson, good morning to you. Anna Hart, what's going on, Anna? Esther Brochi, good morning, Esther. Ear Hustler, good morning, Brother Bryce. What's going on? Elizabeth, thank you. You as well. All right, y'all. Y'all know what time it is. Our very own independent journalist always bring you the heat and the fire. Our lady in the streets, and she does her dang old thing. It's time for On the Clock with Georgia Fort, y'all. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning. We are here several weeks following the fatal police shooting of Amir Locke. Yesterday, youth demonstrated outside of Mayor Frey's home, demanding not only that he resign, but also to terminate the officer who fatally shot Amir. This has come after almost daily protests where folks have not only asked for the mayor's resignation in light of the way he has handled or mishandled this case, but also asking that the interim police chief resign as well. She had only been in the position for about a month before Amir was fatally shot. But the reason why so much pressure and emphasis has been put on Mayor Frey is because he had campaigned specifically on banning no-knock warrants. And so how is it in a city where the mayor used his political platform to talk about why it was important to ban no-knock warrants, and then turn around, here we are just 3 months after he's reelected, and a 22-year-old is fatally shot while police were executing a no-knock warrant. I want you guys to take a listen to the youth who came out last night to ask that Mayor Frey resign from his position. Take a listen.
Amir Locke, say his name! Amir Locke! Say his name! Amir Locke! Say his name! Amir Locke! When black lives are under attack, what do we do? Stand up, fight back!
It's always the same story, or even a different story, a different name, same outcome. Our children 10 years from now, 15 years from now, shouldn't live in this type of society. So we have to change something. I hate Mayor Frey. He's literally a murderer, and he is complicit to murders that's been happening in Minneapolis. He lied. He said that there's going to be no more no-knock warrants. He literally said that. And Amir Locke died as a result of that lie. And he literally went to George Floyd's funeral and went on his knees and cried. But he was the same one to overfund the police department that murdered George Floyd. Mayor Frey does not need to be mayor. I shouldn't even be calling him Mayor Frey. He needs to be fired immediately. Say, go home, Jacob. 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 Go home, Jacob.
So there, Ben and Brother Mac, we heard from youth. These are voices that typically you don't hear from at, the protests that normally happen. And this was very intentional by organizers who wanted to make sure that our youth are being heard in this moment, right? Children who are the future. Some of them have been able to vote. Some of them aren't even old enough to vote yet. But the consensus among them all is that they have lost confidence in the leadership of the mayor of Minneapolis.
Yeah. Sister Fortin, the thing that you just said that I think is so powerful is that when you have these young people involved and they remember what Mayor Frey said about no-knock warrants, and now they're watching him roll that back, they're putting all the pieces together of how he went to the George Floyd funeral, how he, the so-called passion that he had for that, and now how he's walked that back. And so when they're saying he ought to be fired, go home, that means that they understand the power of their vote.
That's right.
And when they get to a position like that, it's not just Mayor Frey that they're going to now pay attention to in their local community, but they are now understanding why that power to vote is just that. It is so incredibly powerful. And now when you look at that, now they'll understand why you have these efforts around voter suppression. So I am so incredibly proud of what these young people are doing. But more importantly, it shows that they were paying attention to what is happening politically that has led to these situations in their daily lives.
Yeah. And that second sister who said, she said, overfunding the police. And I'm like, that's the first time I heard it said like that. Stop. They overfund the police. And I just, out of the mouths of children comes like so much wisdom. That's how we need to describe it going further. They want to attack us for saying that we need to defund the police. And we have seen in Georgia, you're on the front lines covering all the reasons we need to have that conversation about defunding the police. Right. All the tanks, all of the military grade weaponry, all the stuff that comes down to bear on Black communities specifically is because they are overfunded. And they don't like it when I slogan near, but that's going to be what I say from now on. Stop overfunding the police. So I have to salute that young sister as well as everyone else that was out there making a stand last night.
Speaking of overfunding the police, I received a press release from Governor Tim Walz yesterday announcing that he will be allocating $300 million to public safety statewide. I thought this was an interesting response in his press release. He didn't mention at all anything about police killings, rather the uptick in community violence. And he had a few quotes from police chiefs who preside over districts that are considered suburbs, which it's also interesting because you hear mainly of the violent crimes happening in the inner city. So if you're allocating these huge funds for public safety to hear from police chiefs in districts that are not as affected, it seemed like, again, there was some disconnect in messaging here. But also, I imagine that he anticipates some kickback because, yes, while there has been an uptick in gun violence, and we'll talk about cases like Deshaun Hill coming up, a 15-year-old star athlete and honor roll student who was just shot on his way walking to a bus stop, right? Yes, our communities are plagued with gun violence, and this is happening all across America. But I thought that communities of color made it extremely clear that dumping, tons of money into these police departments isn't the answer. As we see here with Amir Locke, that they still don't have proper policies or training in place to prevent the execution of innocent Black men.
And Georgia, if you can, because Mayor Frey ran on a campaign about no-knock warrants, can you just give us a recap again of why this particular no-knock warrant has drawn such criticism for the mayor?
That's right.
Well, in this specific case, I mean, there's also the connection with Judge Cahill, the judge who presided over the Derek Chauvin trial. He's the one who signed this no-knock warrant. The information that I've received is the fact that they raided 3 apartments at the same time, which was really suspicious. The apartment where Amir was, there was no one in connection to the case, or I don't believe they found anything in that specific unit. The things that they were looking for were in the other 2 units that they raided. And so, when you think about the St. Paul Police Department, where this warrant originated, that is a department that did not request this be executed as no knock, right? So that was something Minneapolis Police Department insisted upon. The same department that allowed someone like Chauvin to work for them for so many years, right? This is the same department. They insisted that it be no knock, not the originating department. Go ahead.
So Georgia, geographically, we're talking about 2 separate cities, St. Paul and then Minneapolis.
That's right.
And where this took place, St. Paul's Police Department didn't request a no-knock warrant, but Minneapolis Police Department requested it. Is that, am I correct?
Yeah.
And that's what makes it so infuriating. It was once Minneapolis got involved, that's when our brother's life was signed out, right? It was their desire to have this no-knock warrant at a time that, the mayor was already saying, and part of me, honestly, like I have no reason to even care, about the political career of Frey. But, if you really did want to get rid of somebody, this is just to ignore. Right. There's a lot of mayors who give orders that are ignored. And I have no reason to defend Frey, but I have seen in so many cities, but how many times have they led to death? This is just a real mess here, Georgia. There's just so many hands in this that are 1 degree of separation from George Floyd and from everything else that has been happening in that region. And it just keeps going on. And this officer has not been fired yet. My goodness.
Yeah. And so what we know is that 1,200 Minneapolis residents have now filed an ethics complaint against Mayor Frey. I was there when those complaints were hand delivered to the city attorney's office. The city attorney was not there herself, but one of the employees from that office came out and, did promise to deliver them to the city attorney. There has been cases in the past where ethics complaints have been filed, which did not result into an investigation. And so I think what organizers, community leaders, and simply just residents in Minneapolis are hoping is that these complaints will prompt an investigation into Mayor Frey's conduct. And now that there's public documentation that he's lied on the record, not just about banning no-knock warrants, but also when he stood in front of the press and made statements about what happened to Amir Locke. So, you're seeing here in this community, people always criticize. There's always critics of the protesting. Like, well, what does it do? Why do people keep going out there? It doesn't, it doesn't work. It doesn't do anything. But we're seeing here on the ground these smaller actions that are being less reported on, like that one, where 1,250 ethics complaints are delivered to the city's attorney's office that can actually lead to change.
Wow.
So, I think that the residents, the citizens in Minneapolis and even just statewide in Minnesota are really trying to think critically about the power they have as people to hold their elected officials accountable.
That's right.
So Georgia, not only are we looking at two different cities and this taking place in St. Paul, but Minneapolis executed the no-knock warrant, but we're also understanding that in this no-knock warrant, they spread a web of 3 separate apartments. And Amir Locke, am I clear in what you reported that Amir Locke was not a part of the no-knock warrant?
That's right.
So just flush all that out, because again, it speaks to how egregious this was on behalf of not only Mayor Frey for not following.
Yeah, well, he was staying the night at what his families have said was his cousin's house, and so either someone at his cousin's house or his cousin was named in the warrant, and they were there looking for property that they plan to use as evidence in a homicide trial. So Amir had nothing to do with anything. He just happened to stay the night over a cousin's house, and then this happens.
But Georgia, under the guise of issuing a no-knock warrant, isn't there a tremendous amount of investigation that is done before you issue a no-knock warrant to understand who could potentially be in there? Are there potential weapons in there? All of these things, so that if you're going to execute such a warrant, that you would know going into that place that, wait a minute, we've been surveying this particular place. There are some innocent bystanders who are in there. So when we go in there, we have to be extremely careful. So you would think that that level of investigation was done before that no-knock warrant was issued. And you would think that the judge would have asked those questions. And if they didn't have the answers, one would think reasonably that you would not issue a no-knock warrant.
Well, in that, to that point, I mean, yeah, there should be surveillance, right? If you're monitoring these apartments, these households, there should be some surveillance that could point you to who's in there.
That's right.
Right. I mean, they have the technology. We know that in other instances, they're watching, monitoring, different situations. So I don't know why this specific case would be exempt from that.
That's right. That's right. One other thing, Dr. Mack, because you were pointing out, right? So Amir Locke wasn't on the warrant, and Georgia, I heard you say this morning, what they were looking for wasn't even in that apartment.
Correct.
Yeah. So they hit 3 apartments, and it just so happened 701, the apartment Amir was in, had nothing that they were looking for. 1402 and 1403 were the other 2 apartments where apparently they claim they did recover some of the items that they were looking for.
So, I hope that this does lead to an ethics investigation into Mayor Frey, because we need to know all the connecting dots of from that promise to where it obviously did not become policy. It just did not become policy. But he did have a nice little scene where he kneeled down and cried at George Floyd's funeral.
But Ben, to that point, not only an ethics investigation against the mayor, but to these youth, these young people's point, not only do you recall the mayor, the chief of police, and then the judge. What criteria does one have? What criteria do you have to meet in order to issue a no-knock warrant? And did the judge demand that those criteria be met? Did whoever was doing the investigation that requested it, did they show evidence that we have clearly surveyed this situation? We know exactly what we're looking for. We know exactly where it is. And it is clear based on this tragedy that there were not answers to any of those issues.
Well, and I think that what bothers me in documenting this and following what's happened really since George Floyd was supposed to be a turning point. right? Everybody promised change, that we couldn't go back to the way things were. Everybody from corporations, nonprofits, political leaders, and police departments. Yet here we are 2 years later, still struggling with the same issue that claimed the life of George Floyd. And here in Minneapolis, what we saw happen was a slow backstep away from all of those promises. And it's become a double-edged sword. And the reason why I say it's become a double-edged sword is because on one hand, you have people who are acknowledging that there is serious systemic issues with the way that policing is currently done. On the other side of that, you have an outbreak of community violence where especially elders in the Black community are saying, we need our police officers. But I want to this morning take a second to honor the life of Deshaun Hill. He was a part of a Showtime documentary that was being filmed. He was a star athlete, an honor roll student who was fatally shot while walking to the bus stop, and police still have not found his killer. So while we're investing and saying that we need police, to end community violence, to solve these murders, we actually have a very, very low rate of solvency of murders in the city of Minneapolis. Take a look at this clip from a balloon release that was held in honor of Deshaun Hill.
I can't make sense out of this one. I don't know what to say to the kids, and I don't know what we're supposed to say to our children, because everything that we ever told them to say, Dean Hill was that. I love you.
Yes, sir. Watching us.
God, we can't take this no more. We don't want it. We don't want it. God, this ain't right. It ain't right. These babies passing before their time, Lord, and it is not right. Yes, Lord, yes. We thank you for release. We thank you for release. Yes, just a little while longer.
Everybody repeat after me. We ask for a chance that's fair.
We ask for a chance that's fair.
Chance to go on stride.
Chance to go on stride.
Chance to do it there.
Chance to do it there.
We should win.
We should win.
Let everybody go.
Let everybody go.
Faith and out of hell high.
Faith and out of hell high.
If we should lose.
We should lose.
We stand by the road.
Stand by the road.
Cheers to what is going by.
Cheers to what is going by.
Day by day.
Day by day.
We get better and better.
We get better and better.
Till we can't be beat.
Till we can't be beat.
Won't be beat.
Won't be beat. Woo!
And at the very end there, you heard the football team's chant that they do during practices, during games. Deshaun had a promising future, and that was cut short in a senseless act of violence.
And see, Georgia, based on the last segment we did about what happened with Remington, right? See, this same type of pain should lead to the fact that when you find the gun manufacturer of that, because there was, this gun got in the hands of some reckless individual and causing this type of damage. This is why I think that what happened at Sandy Hook opens up the possibility of now these parents, when you find that killer and you find the gun manufacturer, that now you're able to bring a lawsuit against those manufacturers for this type of senseless violence that is taking place.
That's right. That's right. I agree. I was thinking the same exact thing, Dr. Mack. I think if we find these manufacturers culpable, we'll start seeing a decrease in the violence in our own community.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I think for me, just talking again about the double-edged sword, where you have on one side this community that's demanding change in policing, but yet and still these cases are leveraged by politicians for why police are needed, right? But in this case, Deshaun's killer hasn't been found, and there's babies even over the summer. Ben, we talked about 6-year-old Anaya who was fatally shot. The person who fatally shot her still hasn't been found. The person who fatally shot 9-year-old Trinity still hasn't been found. So we're investing, and even we have a governor who's allocating $300 million to public safety. But
where's the safety?
we have a low rate of solvency of murders. So what are we investing in? What are we investing in?
We also don't know who was burning the black churches in the mid-90s. We don't know who's sending these bomb threats to HBCUs.
Come on.
So when one begins to connect the dots, is it that when these types of crimes and atrocities against black folk take place, all of a sudden the technology, the forensicness of our ability to solve cold cases, all of a sudden they're no longer good? But let this happen inside of another community. And you got more than enough evidence.
That's right.
You got more than enough power. You got more than enough money to find out who was responsible and hold those people accountable. But when it comes to our community, all of a sudden, we can't find out who shot Biggie. We don't know who shot Tupac.
That's right. We're still a mystery. Sister Ford, thank you so much for your coverage. It is always important, and we appreciate what you do.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
We'll be back with more of the Benjamin Dixon Morning Show after this.
Don't got no heart, I got an icebox. Brand new rolling, swipe at the G-Shock. Moving slowly, I know the street hype.
All right, y'all. Make sure y'all stay tuned. We got more coming up next on the Benjamin Dixon Morning Show, man. Shout out to Georgia Ford for everything that she does. Greatly appreciate you, Georgia. Y'all make sure y'all stay tuned, man. Like it or not, it's coming up next with Rebecca Azor.
Bad past never left my mind, it's taking over. No, I should have died, that's why it's hard to stay sober. Glad to see the sun, but my heart getting colder. Life's so crazy, what we been through. When you die, the only time that they gon' miss you. Tell my mama, no more tears, no more tissue. We was just some hood baby with some issues. Hood baby from the struggle. Long time had to hustle. Glad we made it through. I'm just glad we made it through. Hood baby from the struggle. Long time had to hustle. I'm glad we made it through. I'm just glad we made it through. Pull up in that rain, see me ballin', yeah. 30 piece on my wrist like I'm Harden. Either they love me or I'm a target. Cause the ice on me is flawless. I've been busy and picking up when you callin'. And on purpose, I hate the fact we ain't talking. With anything that you need, dog, I got you, I mean that. All this pressure make it hard not to relapse. Build up aggression make it hard for me to relax. To the hood, baby, ain't no way that I'ma lead that. Dogs need hope, step it up, I gotta be that. Cause life's so crazy, what we been through. I'ma love you way before I gotta miss you. Hold this mama by my side, gave her some tissue. We were just a hood, baby, with some issues.
Lily, good morning to you, Lily. All right, y'all, make sure that you stay tuned. We have a special guest that's joining us this morning, one that you do not want to miss. Amber Layla, good morning to you. Ross Banana, good morning. Standing right, what's going on? Snow it, good morning to you. Bailey Lau, good morning. Y'all know what? Not to brag about my finances or anything, but my credit card company calls me almost every day to tell me my balance is outstanding. Look at that. See, I got good credit. They say my credit is outstanding. No. Y'all make sure y'all stay tuned, man. We have Alex Winter joining us this morning. Coming up next on Like It or Not. Y'all stay tuned, man. You do not want to miss this. Good morning, everybody.
You can't break my focus. All I got right now is attention.
Man Shovel, good morning. Thank you, Boondocks Dragon. The Big Piece, good morning. And you know what? What do you call a man in debt? Owen. I crack me up sometimes. All right, y'all. Y'all know what time it is. We are ready to come back. Like it or not, it's coming up next. But before we do, back to my brother Benjamin Dixon and brother Carl Mack. Good morning, fellas. I said, good morning, fellas.
Yeah.
Morning,
I was
good
talking
morning.
in the background. You could hear me. How you doing this morning, brother? DJ Exclusive. Welcome back to the Benjamin Dixon Morning Show. You guys are going to have to forgive me this morning if I do get out of character. It's only because I have been a longtime fan of our next guest. His name is Alex Winter. Many of you may know him from his most recent movie, Bill and Ted 3. Know him as Bill S. Preston Esquire. I'm excited to have you on the show, Alex. Thank you so much for joining us. How are you this morning?
Thanks. It's great to be here. It's bright and early. Actually, it's dark and early here in Los Angeles at the moment.
I feel special because it's 6 o'clock on the West Coast. So I really appreciate you getting up this early. And
no worries.
I want to welcome you to the morning show. We talk on Twitter. I met you on Twitter, and you're really active on in that space, and you're active in the conversation as it pertains to Spotify. We've been covering Joe Rogan and the issue of ownership / free speech. There's a whole lot that's going on, and that was kind of the impetus of our conversation. There's a lot that's happened in that whole story. So, but first and foremost, I just want to welcome you to the show with everybody else. I got DJ Exclusive on the screen, and of course, Dr. Carl Mack, who are also going to be joining us for this conversation.
Good morning, brother.
It's great to be here. I've been a big fan for a long time. So
I mean, that blew me away. Don't see. I'm all discombobulated.
It's a big fan. I'm okay.
Because you gotta understand, like, okay, I'm gonna geek out for like 10 seconds, and then we're gonna get to the real work. Because I was in East Cleveland somewhere around 91, 92 when I saw Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey. So you gotta understand, I've been watching your stuff since I was 12 years old. So this is a big thing for me.
That's great. Thank you.
Which makes me feel even better because not only am I a fan, but you're on the right side of these issues, right? It's not even just the Joe Rogan thing. Let's start with your activism in general. You are using your platform and your voice to actually speak out for progress. And you fighting on behalf of Black lives and liberation. Just tell us what makes you push outside of your acting to get so active.
Well, I think that's funny because that's kind of what's at the heart of this whole issue of what's going on right now, right? The supposed cancel culture that we're in, which I think is really just protest culture. And because if you think about it, the people who are supposedly being canceled are usually part of a very powerful white-oriented establishment that really just want everyone else to shut up. Most of the people are not actually being canceled. And, I grew up born in the 60s and I grew up in the 70s in a very politically active family, but at a time in America where you came home, as a little kid and Nixon was on TV every day, facing, enormous pressure to resign or to even go to jail. The Vietnam War, the world was very political and it was in your face political. So, that's the culture in which I came up. So to me, there's no distinction between being a performing artist or a semi-public person and having political values and being honest and speaking out about those values. So even before this whole cancel culture thing, I always found it kind of disingenuous when they told actors to shut up and not talk. A lot of that was during the Reagan era when we had an actor as president of the United States. To me, it's always been disingenuous. It's always been just a way of getting someone who's saying something you don't like to stop talking. And in the technology age, that's gotten more prevalent than ever.
Yeah. Let's real quick on the technology end, right? Because, the entire conversation about Spotify, while I lean into it because of the royalties and the ownership, there's the technology component where this algorithm that we're fighting against actually prioritizes. And I can tell you that from my space, this space that we occupy, the algorithm is far more likely to take someone down the rabbit hole of right-wing extremism. Talk about it from that, from the technology perspective.
Sure. I think there's something really interesting there. I mean, there is an algorithm. I think the danger of referring to these as algorithmic issues is that they kind of detach the human element from them a little bit.
Good.
And the reality is that we're living in a kind of a cultural flashpoint, right? Where you have a lot of people who are anti-science, who are anti-democracy, very, sort of empowered white supremacist discourse. And at the same time, you have places for them to go where they can connect with like-minded people, which is the internet, where for the first time, there are communities of 100, 200, 300, a billion people online at the same time, connecting with voices that appear to be like-minded to them. A lot of those people are grifters who are just taking their money and telling them what they want to hear, as we well know. But the reality of it is yes, there's an algorithmic aspect in the sense that it will drive you towards more content that is of that type. However, it's not just algorithmic in the sense that these technology platforms are incentivized to have these kind of voices on their platform because it makes them more money, right? And there's no algorithm there. That's just pure greed, right? That's just human nature. If you say something incredibly divisive, if it bleeds, it leads, right? If it's really provocative and divisive and will whip up some group of people that will come rushing back to you for more, like a dopamine hit, that's just money for you. And there's no tech platform out there that's incentivized to say, gee, maybe we should suppress or turn the volume down on those folks because they have to face their boards and tell them why their profits are going through the roof. And no board is going to tell them to start driving those profits into the toilet. So that's kind of the problem I think that we're at with technology.
And so, Alex, one of the things that you said is, the time frame at which you grew up in, and I was born in 1962. So when I hear, this whole free speech thing, it reminds me of the fact that there were signs that said white only. That's free speech. So should those 4 freshmen from North Carolina A&T have not gone in there and spoken up via their actions of sit-ins? Should the March on Washington on August 28, 1963, when 250,000 people showed up to say, hey, we don't like what you're saying about employment. We don't like what you're saying about housing. We don't like what you're saying about public accommodations. So, under this guise, free speech has always been a part, especially from our perspective. Should we have not said anything during the time when we were locked into chattel slavery? So now are they now saying, those folks who are pushing the free speech agenda, should I sit there and say it's okay for you to take my talents and pay Joe Rogan $100 million to sit there and listen to him call me the N-word? Should I just be quiet and say that's okay?
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. And I think that the whole idea, there's a lot of terms that are being used disingenuously right now. I think, cancel culture is one of them. Free speech, the use of free speech is one of them. I don't view as what's going on Spotify and a lot of these tech issues as free speech issues, right? Because the fact is that, if Neil Young or Joni Mitchell or anybody wants to come out and protest something that is existing on basically a company, right? Not a government, but an actual tech platform. That's their right to protest. And their ability to say, look, we don't agree with what we consider to be racist or hate speech or dangerous, anti-vax rhetoric. We don't see that as in line with our values. We are going to protest that by removing ourselves from your company. By the same token, Spotify is just a company. They're not the government, and and Spotify's paid an enormous amount of money for someone to be on their platform. And that person is drawing an enormous amount of ears to that company. I think the question with Spotify is less the question of free speech and more a question of terms of service, because they're just a corporation and they have terms of service. So if what's going on there is dangerous and violates their terms of service, they should do something about it, and that's a different issue. But I'm also, I'm always very cautious of when free speech gets sort of dragged out and people are saying, well, we have the right to say X, because again, I think it's just a matter of trying to silence protests. It's trying to silence, then we suddenly, the whole civil rights movement, which is becoming an issue that we're having to fight all over again right now. Women's rights, right? They rely on free speech in order to actually be effective and make change.
Because Alex, in this case, as I'm listening to you, and I certainly appreciate the profound description that you're providing to us. So I don't see a difference, historically speaking, from Spotify and Woolworth. Woolworth had the right to serve who they wanted to. In this case, they want to serve only white folks. Spotify has the right to, I guess, do what they want to do, and that is to pay a man. You know, when you talk about these other artists, let's put in India Arie. She all, you know, so Spotify is saying, well, Joe Rogan has the right to insult artists like India Arie, black folk, by using one of the most explosive terms. Woolworth has the right to say, no, we don't want you to sit here. We'll take your money, but we don't want to give you that kind of service. So I don't see the difference there. And I certainly appreciate the insight that you bring to the conversation.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah.
DJ Exclusive, did you know that Bill S. Preston Esquire was this righteous? Did you know that he was out here? Like most, I mean, honestly,
you know how many, many people I've been texting and chatting saying, "Hey, y'all need to tune into the show right now."
It's between me and James because we're both
sorry.
We're blurred. We're like, you know, for some black folks, they may not understand it, but there's a whole section of us who are blurs who are geeking out right now just because.
Right.
So Jay, don't let me walk over your questions because I'm geeking out. But
oh no, I'm good. And besides that, in our chat about the color of my shirt, that Alex sees as well too.
Yeah, we're trying to decide if his shirt is orange or red. I'm gonna go with orange this morning, James. But they also said
red here in LA. I'm gonna throw down on red.
Thank you, Alex. I appreciate it.
It's all about it's all a matter of perspective. Go ahead, Brother Mac.
So Alex, what's the conversation like in your circles amongst those in the entertainment industry? Because obviously, you know, again, I'm with you, you know, to all of a sudden try to disingenuously call it cancel culture, this type of thing. So now we're watching people like Rogan be held accountable for his things. Whoopi Goldberg being held accountable for what she said. We've watched certain broadcasters be held accountable. So in your circle, is there a movement amongst those in the entertainment industry pushing against this so-called cancel culture? Is that conversation there in the way that you framed it to say, no, wrong by any other name is still wrong? So what's that like in your circle of friends in the entertainment industry?
I think there's a couple things going on. I think that there has been a kind of a growing community of activism or a growing culture of activism that's become much more powerful leading into the Trump election. I would say it started even before. I think on the other side, you've seen this kind of growing voice on the far right that I think quite rightly feels threatened by this sort of swell of activism and is battling back against that. You have a lot of activity going on, you know, dismantling voting rights, dismantling basic laws within civil rights and women's rights. So there's a kind of a culture war. I mean, it sounds a little hyperbolic, but it's almost like a soft civil war in a way. It's what it feels like on the street, and what it feels like in the entertainment industry as well, where there's a kind of people are looking at each other kind of going, what side are you on sometimes? And what does that create? Creates a lot of fear. So I think there's a lot of fear in the entertainment industry, like, because a lot of people are thinking, well, is this the end of my livelihood? Like, I can't go to battle against giant monopolized tech companies, which are basically the future of the entertainment industry. But I can't shut up, because if I shut up, all of my rights are going to get stripped away, because that's what's happening, right? That's how serious the issues are. When judges are being placed in courts across the country, and redistricting is going on, and voting rights are being rolled back, and basic laws that have been in place for decades are being rolled back. Those are serious problems. So there's a lot of tension, to be honest with you. I find sometimes that people just get overwhelmed. I mean, I think this is something that I've seen you talk about, Ben, with your voice, but there's a lot of people who get overloaded with information, and so they'll just fall hard on one side or the other. They're just like, I give up. I'm over here with these people. And that we've seen that with anti-vax. We've seen that with cancel culture, like, oh, cancel culture is BS. Just let these people be. And for me, kind of, I don't know, my opinion is people are human beings, right? If Whoopi's going to apologize or Rogan's going to apologize and like try to better their rhetoric or their narrative or whatever, I don't care what side of the aisle they're on. That people should listen to that too. That's human, right? And but I do think there's a lot of money to be made in the kind of grift of whipping up this sort of anti-democracy, anti-medicine, anti-women, anti-black. It's a very sort of white supremacist driven narrative, which is why there's often a connection between someone who comes out and says something and lo and behold, oh, they also said this at some point. Big surprise. Where the intellectuals, there are whole communities that are around that.
So Alex, how would you handle that in the case of, Rogan says something, he apologized for it. Whoopi says something, she apologized for it. So when people make that mistake, and when you brought in the human element of it, so how is the level of accountability given, in a case like that?
Well, I think that the corporations are not incentivized to police their platforms. They're just not going to do it.
That's right. Because there's a financial interest.
And huge. It's a huge financial interest, and the future belongs to them, and they want to keep it that way. And there's only a few. We've always said in technology that the tech highway is really narrow. There's only so many lanes on it. As big as it is, there's only a few companies running the whole ball of wax, right?
That's right.
That's a humongous amount of power, monopolized power. That's a whole other problem. We need regulation. We need antitrust laws. We need to probably break most of these companies up. So that's what we're fighting against.
Brother Alex, I want to get you. I call everybody brother and sister. So you have to forgive me, Brother Alex. We have to get you back because I want to expound on something that you said that really triggered this thought. While these tech companies, specifically Spotify, they have the leverage, they have the ground, they have the high ground, they have the money, but they don't have the actual talent. They have the rights to some songs, right? But in a world like, consider you, for example, like I'm more interested in what your next project is rather than some tech company who's going to try to sell it to me. Is there any pathway in the artist, in the industry of separating your power as an individual influencer from not only the tech companies, but also from the studios?
There has been so much thought that's gone into this in the last 25 years. I'd say, the first documentary I made was about Napster, and, the very young kids who created that had this vision of creating a sort of artist-based collective, and the whole thing just was a disaster. And you're always, it's human nature. I think I hate to sound cynical, but you're always going to have middlemen and gatekeepers that come in and drive a wedge between the artist and the audience, because that's where the money is. So it's really hard. Like there were early maneuverings in the blockchain community. This is going back before NFTs and all this crazy hype kind of BS that's going on now, where they were trying to create sort of artist-based communities using blockchain technology that would circumvent sort of bases. It's really hard. As soon as any system is built, like that's what happened with Spotify, right? Spotify grew out of iTunes, which grew out of Napster. And originally it was like, oh, we're going to have the ability for artists to have power because now they'll be in control. We saw where that went, right? Exactly. Now they're making less money. They have less power. Gatekeepers are making more money. They have all the power. And I think that's part of what Neil Young and Joni Mitchell are protesting against. I think it's an entire ecosystem that they think is sort of trying to drive their voice down. And like as being artists from the 60s, they're like, that's not right.
That's right. That's right. Alex Winter, tell everyone about your next upcoming project or whatever it is that you want them to know about before we get out of here.
Well, I'm kind of knee deep in the middle of it right now. I have a documentary coming out later this year on YouTube and the power and implications of that particular platform, which bleeds into this quite specifically. So that's kind of what I'm driving into next. I'm happy to come back and chat to you again when that's a little closer.
Absolutely. Alex Winter, also known as Bill S. Preston Esquire. I want to start a band, Dr. Mack. I want to call it Black and Mild Stallions. Black and Mild Stallions is a band.
Really, man?
Alex, thanks so much, man. James, take us to a break. When we come back, like it or not, with Rebecca Zora is going down.
I can't stand you, man. Black and Mild Stallions. Ben, go away, please. Alex Winter, thank you so much for joining us this morning. And the chat room is saying thank you as well, too, for what you did with the Zappa legacy. So thanks again, Alex, for joining us this morning. Greatly appreciated. I fanboyed out. So I'm not gonna lie to you. The nerd in me came out this morning. Awesome B-roll, David. I appreciate it.
It was never about the fame to me. They needed the best, so they came to me. Who the best in this thing? Tell them, yeah, that's me.
And And of course, I'm the lead singer of the band, Black and Mild Stallions. We all know that. Look at my lips. Come on, man. Definitely the group leader. Front runner.
That's your man? Yeah, that's me. And if I'm taking a shot, I don't miss. Who knew I would be at the top like this? And no one made my goals for me. But I'm exactly who I'm supposed to be. Cause it's the path that God chose for me. So even if some doors close for me, I still won't let y'all close to me. So please step back where you're supposed to be. Put the game all on hold for me.
Y'all make sure y'all stay tuned. Rebecca Azora has been outside the door waiting, it looks like.
I'm way at the top who can take my place.
So we're going to get to her momentarily.
Tell them, yeah, that's me. Tell them who bring the fire, say, yeah, that's me.
But before we even get to the song, tell y'all about a new purchase I got a couple of days ago. I bought a box of Viagra tea bags last night. Yeah, Viagra tea bags. They do nothing for your sex life, but they do stop your biscuit from going soft when you dunk it. We got to cue the music. I ain't got no sense.
It's going down.
Rebecca Azora is joining us up next, y'all. Make sure y'all stay tuned. Hey, and if you have not become a member of Patreon already, why would you not want to be a member of this? Why would you not want to support this? Patreon.com/LikeItOrNot, Patreon.com/The BPD Show, and also members, Act.TV. You can go join and become a member for free. So get your tail on over there and join, please. We love y'all, mean it. Y'all stay tuned, man. We got more coming up next year on the Benjamin Dixon Morning Show.
DJ exclusive. Y'all know who I am. I stay dropping them jams. Like it or not.
Yeah, y'all didn't tell me.
It's going down. Like it or not. Y'all stick around. Oh, like it or not. It's starting now. Like it or not. It's about to go down.
Like It or Not with Benjamin Dixon starts now.
Good morning, people.
Good morning.
Good morning, and welcome to Like It or Not, where we're free to tell the truth
and not care who doesn't like it.
Hey, Rebecca.
Good morning, Queen.
Talking about
hey, good morning.
Girl, we know who you is, girl.
Well, you can say what you want to, but Queen got something on her mind. I know that black woman look.
See, I just shut up. She on screen. What is thou bidding, Queeness?
So, I hope that you guys had a great Valentine's Day weekend. Let's start there. I hope that you guys enjoyed
Valentine's Day.
Okay.
Continue.
Oh no, I know the Queen had one. It was.
I had a good Valentine's Day weekend. I had a good Galentine's because you commented under my picture. I was cracking up. I'd be like, that is Dr. Carl Mack. I always look. I'm like,
Poor Queen, that wasn't a Valentine's Day. That was an event. That was an experience.
Yeah, we do that though. We have a good time. We have a good damn time. So I went over to last year. I did Tennessee, but it was like an ice storm. And it was just like a terrible time because I was going through a bad breakup last year. But we went to Tennessee and me and my best friend had us a good time. This year, it's like I'm single again, back on the proud, like that. So I went to where she lives. She lives in Louisville, Kentucky. And we went over there and we planned this whole thing because she just got this new space, for her and her kids. And we sent the kids down to the mama's house. Set the place up real nice, invited our other friend over and had a handsome cook
come and cook dinner for us, a
Okay.
3-course meal, real sexy. And you know, it was real nice and plated, and we made it like nice and corny, but really cute how we did the setup, you know, all love in the air.
Nice.
And then we went out that night to the club. We was dancing
living on the
two-stepping.
edge.
It was a nice little vibe. We were the only ones with our mask on in the spot. So, and then we was like, okay, it's getting a little packed. We did our two-step. We did our go Mary. And then we left.
You
And
did
they
a
were
Mary
calling
dance?
us Valentine's Day bunnies. That's what they was calling us on the DJs.
I don't know,
Yes,
Queen,
indeed.
but I'll tell you what, you know, if you hadn't gone to her IG, you need to go and see the setup. That I'm looking like, is that like a Hollywood production kind of Valentine's?
Hey, man.
Listen,
We
did
found where
that. We
Dr.
did.
Mac live online, and it is Instagram. Do we have the pictures?
Oh, here
Oh,
you go.
look
So
at
this
that.
is the setup.
You pulling up something? What you pulling up, David?
That's what he's pulling up on my
I don't know.
IG. Just on
Oh,
here
there
for
it is.
the-
Okay, I can see it now.
See, if I
Sorry. There
laid
it
it,
is. It was a
I
delay.
laid it spread out there like that for a woman, she'd be like, look.
So
this
we had a
man is ready to
menu.
marry me.
We did a whole menu. Here goes our little handsome chef. Shout out to Fork Dive out in Kentucky.
Look at that.
And then
Isn't it nice?
he got it on mute, but there's music on there, but we don't want it to get shut down. That's, you know, it's-
Right.
Yeah, we don't want us to get.
Why
So
would
we
you
did the
tease him with the- he
champagne.
was
Then
about-
we
you
got
saw the mouse go over there. He was about to get a.
Then we had gifts for each other. Well, my best friend got us gifts and cards. And then we were singing Chris Brown, Your Man Ain't Me. Stop tripping. You know, we took it back a little bit. And that's my best friend, Dina. And that's me, the Valentine's Day bunnies. That's us when we were getting ready for like getting the place ready.
So Queen, is it safe to say that your chef was eye candy?
Yeah, definitely.
Right.
Let me tell you something. And my outfit was so cute. I did a monochrome magenta, what people want to call fuchsia, whatever you want to call it, purple. But I did that, and I had, you know, some sexy furry heels that I've been some stilettos that I've been wanting to wear so bad. So I had that. It wasn't cute. I got to wear the outfits that have been sitting in the closet collecting dust. But I said this year these outfits will be worn. Do you hear me? They will be worn. So yeah, it was a good little. And then I came here and I got some bouquet of flowers. And what I did was I wanted to make sure when I came home for Valentine's Day, I had some balloons for myself though. But I did get some flowers though, which is nice. They're in water right now. But I had like some balloons set up, so when I came home, it felt like love for me. So yeah. I love to see love all multifaceted. I love to see people loving on themselves. I love to see people who are hanging out with their girls or guys that are hanging out with their guys, showing love to each other. And I love to see, you know, people who are in relationships. I think love is multifaceted, and however you chose to spend it that day or every day, you know, it's good. It's a good thing.
Love is love. I love it.
But let's talk about this though. So I'm glad to be here on the show. You guys held it down yesterday, talking about penis sizes yesterday. I just can't.
Wait a minute, wait. Literally 2 seconds of the show was talking about that. Is she going to say that?
Was it 2
Okay.
seconds? Because I was like, okay.
It was the last 2 seconds of the whole show.
It should have been longer than that. Y'all need to do that man justice.
It should have been longer than that. So
I'm done. It's
Rebecca.
It's crazy.
It was still good.
It was very brief.
So not the white man coming up. Hey, David, I haven't seen you in a while.
Brief, no pun intended.
Brief, short.
First time.
They said it should have been longer than that. Okay,
Move fast.
Anyway,
This is a minor situation.
I didn't mean to bring that conversation back up because we're not going there, but I will say this and move on from that conversation. You know, people be lying when they be like, "Ooh, I want it big." You know, it don't really be all that. You know,
Right.
It really don't be all that. Yeah, and then that was not small. I'll just put that, you know, there and move on. So
Thank you, Rebecca.
Yesterday, 2 days. No,
Shout
if
out
you
to
guys
Nelly. Go ahead.
last, you know, shout out to Nelly. Last month, January, there was a random drop from, and I'm sorry, David, I'm going off, you know, what's on the paper, but a month ago, Swiss Beats, Timbaland, who are known for doing the versus battle, which they started during the pandemic for the culture, as they said, which would always be free. Because we needed something to bring us together during the pandemic. We had old school verses, we had some new school stuff. We had a lot of, you know,
it's beautiful,
nice battles that brought us together from the crib. You know what I'm saying? In a safe space, and it was really nice. It was great moments, and they've been trying to balance out how they want to bring it back, how they want to balance it out. They've been trying to do that, right? And not too long ago, they did sell over to Triller. And so Triller acquired Versus. We didn't know what that mean. We being the people who support Versus and things like that. So just a month ago, they kind of stopped promoting a lot of versus battles on their Instagram too, because we go to Instagram to watch the versus battles. We do that. We watch the numbers go up and things like that. And since then, Versus has now been, you can go to Triller, you can go to Versus TV on YouTube to watch it for better quality. If you want a hood experience, just go to Instagram and follow along in the comment section. But I say all this to say, in January, Swiss Beats, dropped that Music Soul Child, and Anthony Hamilton will be doing a versus for Valentine's Day. Yeah. So everybody was getting ready. You know how they do every time a verse is going to come out. They were talking about how they're going to pull up, what they're going to dress like. It was like in suits, and how they're going to enjoy it, because it's R&B, it's Music Soul Child. It's Anthony Hamilton. We're going to get some good love, especially with Music Soul Child, hits for hits. So when the day came, we all took to social media, getting ready, excited, and only to see on social media, on Instagram, that the verses will not be free. It was said in the comment section, it was a pinned post by Versus that said, you can watch it on Triller, download Triller, or head over to Triller and get the 14-day trial to watch it. 14-day trial. Pay for it, or 14-day trial. And it took a lot of people, it threw us for a loop, because Swiss Beats initially said, this will be free and it will be for the culture. We don't want to take this and remove something that we built for us and for us to have a good time. We don't want to remove that. We don't want to capitalize on that, because it's really just for us to have a good time.
That's right.
And so that was a lie. It was the lies. It really took people by a loop. People were saying, well, how he gonna feed his kids? Who?
Swiss?
Timbaland? Because let's talk about this. He's telling us who get for what they get paid, especially Instagram pays you to do lives on Instagram. So they're telling us, who don't even need a penny to a dollar what they get paid, to go and subscribe to watch stuff that don't start on time, technical difficulties all through it. Now, know when we watch it be shutting down every 10 minutes.
Remember the Teddy
and we got to go back on there. Okay. All kinds of things that, are a mess, but it sucked because we wanted that moment, but it was more looking at it from a capitalistic view, like a capitalism view. It was like, dang, it sucks that even in this moment, something that was supposed to be for us was taken away from us. And the people that run Triller were literally bullying people, saying, we not giving it for free. It will not be streamed. We will not stream it on Instagram. We will not stream it on Versus TV. You have to go and purchase this subscription. And it's a free subscription for $14. They literally kept writing that on there. So everybody Black took to social media and said, we refuse to do that. We're not going to do that. We're not going to do that. We don't even have the money to get onto subscribing for this, right? Right. And then they moved forward. Swiss came out of nowhere and was like, I wasn't even in town when this happened. Lies. I wasn't even in town when this happened. We will move forward with the free verses. So basically, they yesterday they said it was live, but whatever happened on the 14th, they just played again on yesterday. And I saw so many technical difficulties happening. It was a fool. I couldn't even stay up because, mind you, the verses started at 9:30. I couldn't even stay up. I was tired as hell. I went to sleep, but it looked like it was a really nice verses. But imagine if we just had it in that moment. How many people they lost out on? Even the numbers weren't hitting on what they usually hit on. You lost a lot when people started to realize it was almost as if you sold out. And I understand a check, money, but it's like you're telling us who ain't got none to go and purchase to watch this that has been given to us for free for 2 years. 2 years.
Yeah.
And now you're
and I don't know if you noticed, but the thing is with that versus battle, when they sold to Triller, it was already a bad idea. I can't remember whose versus it was that came on. It may have been Escape and was it SWV?
Yes.
They did their verses together.
Yeah.
I think I want to say that's around the time when it started. But when Triller took over, there were already a lot of things going on. Like you had to go to the app or to the TV app or whatever, even to watch it. And a lot of times that was already failing because I stopped watching verses all because of that. Because the way that they handle their stuff is terrible. And like at one point you would be able to go watch it on Apple TV and stream it to your TV. You can do a lot of things. Now when Triller took over, all of that's gone.
It has to be just Triller.
It has to be directly from the app. Even on Instagram, like the feed was like not the same.
Yeah.
And so it's been going on for a while, and that's why I stopped watching it, because when Triller took over, it just became a cluster F of everything. And like it wasn't doing these artists justice at all. It wasn't doing them any justice.
And they were saying, to sell to somebody who isn't for the culture is interesting, because now it takes away from the whole reason why we created it. I understand, like, we got to make money. I get that. But the promise didn't come from us. The promise came from Swiss. The promise came from Timbaland. When they first came out, they said they the ones that pushed that on us. We will not sell to nobody. We're not making no money off of this. This is purely for the culture, for those of you who are at home during this pandemic, which we're still in the pandemic. But for those of you who are at home, and honestly, this is just something for us to feel good about and just come together. Since we can't come together as we used to, just to come together and just have these moments. And it sucks because a lot of people were anticipating, that Anthony Hamilton and the music, but that's not really what it was about for me. It was just about, dang, it's crazy how you can just sell something that we thought that you really had heart for, and you sell it, you go on a trip and claim that you didn't know anything that was going on. You come back, then you rebrand this thing that was done live yesterday, and then you state, and then on the post you say, we heard you. So
I hate that
heard
phrase.
you.
I hate that phrase.
Yeah.
We heard you.
If you heard us, see, this ties so much back to the whole conversation for the entirety of the day, because as soon as a good thing comes around, because that was the best part of the beginning of the pandemic, like we had community, and they being people who trying to get the bag on every opportunity. They saw all these black people. I think we were. It was like a gospel one they had. It was Hezekiah Walker and John P. Key. Then they get like to 500,000 people live. It was some obscene number, and they had all these black people in this space. And then all of a sudden, all the money, all the dollar signs start going off. And so they took that. They literally just snatched that away from the community. And these are people who are already rich. Can't nobody talk to me about Swiss. Swiss was just on a private jet flying back from some vacation he took with Alicia Keys. Shout out to them. Love y'all. But they don't need the check. The community needs that activity that we created collectively together. Y'all didn't create that. Social media. This is the last thing I say about it. Social media ain't created nothing but a space where we all got in there and made this happen. And here they are coming to take it away from us so that they can get a check. I'm talking about Triller mainly. That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, it definitely Triller. And you know who really started it? It was DJ D Nice. When he was the first one that started that, he kicked it off. And I'm glad that he still, actually, I don't even think he does his streams anymore like that, like he used to.
Nope.
But during the pandemic, he was in high gear. That was like, man, we can have a party in our house, not going anywhere. And I think that's when Swiss and Timbaland took the idea, like, well, let's do a versus battle. Boom, that blew up. And now here it is. They're trying to capitalize off of it. They're not trying. They are capitalizing off of it.
Yeah.
They're doing the verses. I was on mute.
There we go.
They're also adding a verses for basketball, right? I bet none of you guys knew that. Why? Because they're purposely not advertising any longer on Instagram for people not to want to go to Instagram to watch verses, where verses literally was birthed. They do not want you to go on to Instagram any longer. And I'm not saying that because Instagram is paying. Instagram pays. Instagram, I need everybody to say that, Swiss ain't making no money. Instagram pays you to go live. When you have a certain amount of followers, Instagram gives you money when you go live. They do. They pay you for your lives. And, I know that sometimes, and this is that moment, this is that point, this is that area where it's kind of great for some people, because it's like when money comes to you and it's like, what? I'm going to go where the money is, like where the money resides. That's where I'm going to go. I'm going to go where the money resides. But at the same time, it's like, I made this promise to people who are counting on me. I made that promise to people. So how does me going over here where the money resides assist those same people? You literally just walked in there and gave verses to Triller and allowed Triller to make the rules. That's where it was problematic. I'm not saying don't get your coin, but lay down the law where you want what you want it to be, how you want it to look. Because now Triller has taken and stripped it of being for the culture.
That's right.
They're not people who can understand. So
Spotify.
that's just where
they know about Spotify, another tech company that knows how to exploit talent and community. And anyway, I'm so tired of them.
Anywho, I think we should go ahead.
No, because I want to. I've been leery about sharing this next video only because we're streaming on Facebook, and I know Facebook is going to hit us pretty hard. But did y'all see the most transparent example of racism that I have seen with the cops in the Bridgewater Mall in New Jersey? Yeah, it's the video. DL Hewley shared it on Instagram. I shared it on Twitter, and it's everywhere. I don't know anybody with a large platform who shared it on Facebook, because Facebook will flag us if we put this on there directly. I want to play it here because it's 56 seconds short. But in this time, you're going to see two fellas fighting, black kid, white kid. You're going to see one of them's aggressor, and then you're going to see who the cops decide to arrest. Let's take a look at it.
Andrew. Right out there, girl. I mean, you're talking to an individual. Get up. Go outside right now. Go outside right now. You're talking to an individual. What are you going to do? You know I've been having my face. Get your hand on my face. Shit. Come outside.
Oh, shit.
Yo.
No, bro. Chill. Brian, get out. Brian, leave. Holy shit.
Wow.
Nah, nigga, what the fuck?
Holy shit. Oh no. Holy fuck.
It really.
Yo, it's because he's black. Racially motivated.
It's really bothering me about the people saying nigga in the background. I'm like, who is he black?
What race are they?
Or is he white? Because the way he's saying that is bothering me, but that's neither here or there. When I saw this video originally, when I seen it yesterday, it was posted by like a random page. And they were saying like, this is what racism looks like. I just watched it. I'm like, what is it? Racism looks like. This boy is getting worked. That's what I saw when I was first watching it. I'm like, somebody get the black boy out of there. I don't like that. And then when I saw the cops immediately come, almost take the white boy and remove him from the black kid into safety so that they can subdue the criminal, the thug, the man that is just a threat to everyone because of his skin color. The lady had to come over. You was over there subduing the white boy. You had to come over and put your little knee on his back, on his neck. Like just it's chilling. Like it. When I see this, I get really upset because somebody was saying, I mean, are we going to focus on the race here? You know, it's always people in the comment section talking about that. Are we going to focus on the race here, or are we going to look at police officers just abusing their power? I'm like, yeah, okay, police officers abuse their power. We know that, right? But when you look at this, look how they're abusing their power specifically towards the black child.
Mm-hmm. They're coddling the white boy. That's all they're doing is coddling him. Yeah. Well, are you okay? Are you okay? F all that. You just basically just arrested this boy who, from what I'm understanding, what the white boy was bullying the black boy, and the black boy stands up for himself.
Had his hand in his face.
Clearly, you can tell who the aggressor is. Yeah, but of course, they're gonna arrest the black kid and pin him to the ground like he's a damn animal. He's a damn juvenile. You don't have to treat kids like that, man. You really don't.
It's crystal. It's one of these things, man, that when people look at the people who see this and try to find an excuse, they were never going to see racism in the first place. And that's why I don't spend a lot of energy trying to explain it to folks no more. Right. Because y'all don't want to know. They don't care. They see this And then there's people who try to make justifications for this. Now the black kid was arrested for was cuffed for 30 minutes. They were all both subsequently released. There's an investigation going on, et cetera, et cetera. But of course, the police are investigating themselves. And here, I mean, the guy is just standing there like the white kid, almost like, I can't believe I got away with that. But he did.
Right.
Cuffs were never placed on the white kid.
And he's allegedly, he being the black child, he's allegedly suspended from going to the mall for I think 3 years or something like that, while the white kid got a slap on the wrist. This is allegedly, so of course they're still doing an investigation, and that's what really bothered me. We see how the extreme it goes when it goes to reprimanding black people. Instead of just coming in to break up the fight, we're talking about police officers who are trained to do this. There's nobody with weapons. They're two kids fighting. So instead of coming in to break up the fight, this is what they do. And I'm pretty sure they've taken him to the area where they hold the kids, wrote him up, got him on the list for them all of that, while the white kid's parent probably came and picked him up. They probably communicated with the white kid's parents. I'm assuming this because I've seen this happen with my own eyes before as well. We covered a story of the white Karen lady at the Victoria's Secret.
That's right.
Bullying a black woman. And when she went to go report it to the cops at the mall, they were saying, I mean, what can we do about this? And then they almost proceeded to say that the black woman was causing the issues. And that's where it's problematic. It's like, it's just, when you see black, you see an issue. When you see black, you see a threat. When you see a black kid, you see a black man. It's just immediately a threat. And we see this, our justice system, the people who are put in place to serve and protect us, they don't serve and protect black people. They don't cover black kids. Nothing at all. So it's really sad to see this. I hate that the kids are trained to put this on video, but at the same time, I love that we were able to see what we saw in broad daylight. I love that we've seen that. Because we can now have these conversations, and people still gonna be in the comment section now trying to say that we can't just make it about race. Police officers do abuse their power. Police officers shouldn't do this to kids of any color, but the fact that they're constantly doing it to black children is something that we should have the conversation
Instinctively.
about.
That was instinct. That was what we saw, was pure instinct. You saw the loving police officer mother go over there and pat the little boy on the side and check and listen. She listened to him. She knelt down beside him, right? I think at one point they even patted the white kid. Their instinct was to protect and serve the white kid from the black kid. When clearly in the video, it's the white kid. When the cops come around the corner, it is the white kid at the mall who is standing over, beating the black kid. So anyway, people who don't want to see it, they just don't want to see it at this point.
Yeah. Now, David, who you said Kanye is better than Coachella? Kanye crazy. Let's go with Coachella, because Kanye just off his rocker right now. I don't know what's going on. And I mean, I understand he's hurt, and that's what it is. He's hurt. He lost his mama. He lost his wife, and he's losing his family. He's a hurt man, but
Ben can introduce it better, but it's not about the gossip. It's about how Kanye,
the turn,
well, that was a crazy. First of all, let's talk about how crazy that transition was. So that was a hard one.
That's all on Jay.
It was a curve.
None of the blame.
Before we get to that story about Kanye, I think that the take that we have on it is totally different from it being gossip. But before we get to that, I want to know what Dr. Carl Mack over there sitting like a statue thinks about the last story we just talked about.
3 words. This is America.
That's right. I already knew that's what Dr. Mack thought. Look,
literally, this is America. Where when they ushered those 3 words, benefit of doubt. This is America. Benefit of the doubt went clearly to that white kid. And to your point being, if the cops didn't see the start of it, normally you would normally look at it as though the aggressor, whoever the aggressor was,
that's right.
At the moment you see it, clearly you would have thought that they would have been snatching the white kid up and dealing with him. So does this tape clearly show prejudice? This is the prejudice that America has had with us from day one. And you saw it play out with these 2 kids And you saw what the way law enforcement, this white folks, in case you ever want to know, this is Tamir Rice, a little 12-year-old kid playing in the park, like most little black boys have done, playing with a toy gun, but he gets shot for it. Little white kid playing with the gun, no problem. This is the Karen in the Victoria's Secret falling all over the floor, and the police says, oh, she has to be the problem. This is America. America does rarely is America giving us the benefit of the doubt. This is Rodney King. Even when you look at the tape, you won't believe your lying eyes. Those cops could not believe their lying eyes. And yes, Karen caught a little Tommy as though she was the victim. This is America, white folks, like it or not.
And I just want to point out, because you said something real strong right there. You said that's Tamir Rice playing with the toy gun, right? Yes. And then the white kid that's playing with the toy gun, not only is he's not playing with the toy gun, he's actually pulling up to school and shooting folks. He's actually pulling up to churches and shooting folks. He's actually pulling up to protests and shooting folks. And every instance that we've seen this in, for the white kid, the cops have coddled that child and said he was just having a bad day. They've brought them over to go get burgers.
Dylan Roof.
They've given them fist pumps, right? As we talk about Rittenhouse. This is what we're talking about here.
Yeah. Rittenhouse, Dylan Roof, the same thing. You are not going to tell me that a black man could be walking, that a black man could come to a rally with an illegal weapon, knowing that he's walking into an agitative situation, shoot and kill some white folks, go to court and get off with it. This is America. And white folks, if you are in a state of denial, and I'm not talking about that river in Egypt, you done lost your ever-loving mind.
Like it or not. Okay, so yes, we got 8 minutes. We got 8 minutes left in the show. I think that was a great conversation that can go on for years and days, but we'll be back to it tomorrow. Don't even worry about it. But I did want to briefly touch on the Kanye situation. If you guys seen him, a mess as he's been online. Initially, when he first came out, he's dating some other woman, going through the divorce with Kim. We've all seen that. He tweeted out that she was holding his kids hostage from him, and also almost asked us to help him. He was giving a conversation, and I just wanted to juxtapose this as well. He was giving the conversation saying that this is not right because I'm black, and what happens to black people who are kept from their kids, that conversation. Now, to juxtapose this, a few years ago, it was slavery was a choice. Remember that? Yeah. Slavery was a choice. It was Trump was, a great representation for America. Remember that? Yeah, remember that? And so I remember it. So I was just going to drink my tea as I watch you, because I am not. After we tried to save you on day one, you weren't there for us. Like you weren't open to it. You continued to do what you were doing, and we had to see and process this every day. Someone that we love telling us that slavery wasn't a choice. The same person that used to rap about us and our black being beautiful. Okay. Right. Remember that? I remember it. Oh, yeah. Now we've already gone through the abuse and the trauma that you put us through. Now you need us. You think we're about to come save you? It's funny, but not to laugh at that. To get serious. He has been on social media attacking his wife, his estranged wife, Kim Kardashian, in a way where it's like living next door to her, allegedly, pulling up with trucks with flowers coming to her home, posting text messages between her and him, and threatening her now boyfriend, Pete Davidson, who was on SNL. Posting like tweets about him and saying y'all need to watch out, I'm gonna get him, kind of threats about him on there, and actually posting things about Kim and saying how she's raising the kids and it's not proper, right? That's how he initially came to social media with it, and then now he has changed his tune since he saw that we weren't, especially black women, weren't coming to his defense. It's now, I want my wife back. You guys stand down on the tweets or the things that I was saying about her now boyfriend. I don't want you guys to hurt him, because she tweeted out, she didn't tweet this out. She actually texted her husband.
That's right.
Please stop tweeting this stuff. Pete can get hurt. And he was like, basically, I don't want him to get hurt, but then started still continuously pushing forth these conversations, even pushing forth conversations that were between family members saying, hey, I got some information on Kim for you. You know, he just goes spiraling down. And it's hard to see him spiraling down, but I don't even care for Kim. I don't care for the Kardashians. But as somebody watching, you know, abuse happen, we have to call a thing a thing.
That's right.
This is abuse happening. Kanye is abusing her on her in her world on social media.
Right.
And this is a form of abuse that we must like. He's a narcissist. He's gotten to a point where it's just like, I am going to make sure your life is miserable. I'm going to make sure that I tap into every single moment. You can't date nobody else. If it ain't me, you can't be with anybody else. The way that you raise the kids ain't right. It ain't never going to be right if it ain't the way. And I will pull the black card on you. And I'm like, ooh, for me to have to say that is crazy, but that's what he's doing. And I think that in this moment, what we're seeing, for instance, what Adrian said, she says, Kanye claims he didn't know his public behavior toward Kim is harassing. That response simply reminds me of how men either feign ignorance or exhibit total disregard for how their behavior affects us. Ye gets no passes from me, and I agree. She continued to say, Kanye and Kanye alone is responsible for his behavior. I agree. He's responsible for ignoring Kim's no, implicitly threatening her boyfriend, and engaging in other stalker type antics. This isn't romantic or sweet. It's terrorizing behavior too many women face once they leave a man. I agree. And sometimes that can turn fatal. We've seen it.
And let me say this as well too. You know, I don't speaking from a male perspective, I think sometimes, and this is not taking up for Kanye at all, I think sometimes you get in this mode where you're trying to do the most and you think that it's okay. But while you're out there doing the most, you can be causing more harm than what you're doing good for. Because like that delivering flowers and doing all the extra stuff, you think it may be sweet, but on the other side, the other person is like, I feel like you're stalking me and now you're putting my life in danger. So I really think it's one of those things. He's just like I said previously at the start of this conversation, Kanye is losing his mind. He's lost a lot. Not sticking up for him is nothing that we can do. That man got money. Kanye needs to sit on somebody's sofa and seek some mental help. It's simple as that. You know, because he's not well. He has not been well for some time.
Yeah, you know, Queen, when you was reminding us of all the things he did, see, this is one of the images that comes up to me. You know, Kanye now all of a sudden wants to be black, but then Trump was good. Slavery, you know, his issues about slavery, him draping himself in the Confederate flag. Now that you're in trouble, now you want to come home. And you know, so it's hard for me to be sympathetic given his past behaviors. Hard for me to be sympathetic about it. Although I do and I do appreciate DJ what you're saying. Clearly, this brother, you know, is going through a tumultuous time in his life. But, you know, when you do have your senses about you, somehow, you know, and this should be a call out to all these folks, Omarosa, Lil C. Owens, all of you, trust and believe. It's going to come a time when them taps on the bottom of your shoes, we going to hear them taps when you're trying to come back home. And we're not going to allow you to come back to the Black family reunion. Because we don't realize that your Kool-Aid ain't red no more.
But and the thing is, we offer the Kool-Aid ain't red. But we offered so much of, hey, even when you said slavery was a choice, we're like, Kanye, run that back, baby. I know you're going through some things. We could like, come on back home. That's a lot that you just said. But come on back, baby. Like, we just really
want. What does he do? He doubled down on it.
He doubled down on it, and he even. And this is the same man that was, you know, said, leave your ass for a white girl, you know, was talking about those kind of things happening in our community. He was the one. This is my problem. Y'all come out promising, not saying that you can't change your mind, not saying that you can't grow, not saying that whatever direction you choose to grow or go is not possible, because that's you. But at the same time, you didn't want Black assistance. You didn't want the Black conversation anymore. It was no longer, you see, when Kanye was losing his mind saying those things, and we just wanted to say, hey, here's the couch you can sit on. Hey, we want to protect you. Hey, we want to cover you. When that conversation was happening, You know who wanted to monetize off of that and push him and continue to create relationships with people who were part of the KKK and all of those things? White folks, Republicans. They didn't say, oh, he's losing his mind. They were saying this, he's just free from the chains of those old conversations. He's, he's changing. He's moved on, Now we want to tap into he needs some help. No, he's been needed help. He needed help then, and he needs help now. And in this particular moment, though, he needs to go find that for himself. Like Adrian said, Kanye is responsible for his own behavior at this point. And when he was calling for us to assist him, our hearts were cringing because we did want to bring out our hand naturally, because that's what we do as Black folks. But at this point, we had to look the other way. We did. And that's why he went back to, I want my family back.
And Queen, the other thing that when you telling us to remember when Kanye appeared to understand us culturally, it's two other issues. Remember when Kanye, what he said about President Bush during Katrina.
Right. That's right.
Remember what he did when he ran up on stage. I think it was Taylor Swift that got the
award. Yep.
So see, on one hand, you show this cultural sensitivity, this understanding of the culture. And then on the other hand, you double down on slavery as a choice. You double down on wearing a Confederate flag. You now say that one of the most infamous people to ever sit in the Oval Office, 45, you're down with that? It's hard for me to walk any of that back, especially as you so eloquently stated, Queen, that we've given you the opportunity to walk these things back. And now that you find yourself in the perils of hell, now you want to come back. Help me.
Love you, mean it, but you gotta.
And I don't know if it's really one of those things of him coming back. Because, let's be honest, y'all. And this is me looking at it from a music perspective. I don't know what kind of help he gonna get from the Black people, regardless of if he was out here screaming for help or not. Ain't nobody helping him get his family back. Ain't nobody helping him do nothing else. So I don't know what kind of help he expecting from anybody, honestly, from his own community. Honestly, truly. And a lot of that stuff, y'all, that y'all talking about that he did, I honestly think all of that shit was just for show. I'm gonna keep it out and keep it real for a person to be relevant. Because it's a lot of artists.
Which one was the real one?
It helps financially. It helps.
Yes, it's a lot of artists that are out here wearing that Confederate flag drip like that, Dr. Mac. Some people do it just to shock white folks and tell you okay, I can wear this better than you can and not mean anything to me. And some people just do it just for the hell of it. Because it's a lot of people that did that kind of Confederate. Yeah, I'm sure he did. But and I don't know if he did to spite us, Rebecca. I'm not gonna say that. That nigga just crazy. Excuse me. That man just crazy. I don't think he did it to spite anybody. It's all political standpoint at this point. It's all political.
We got a whole lot more. We got a whole lot more to go. We didn't do an after party yesterday. Let's get the after party in. The music is in the background. DJ exclusive is in your hands. After party. Let's do it.
All right, y'all. We appreciate y'all for coming in today. Alex Winter came through, man. Hey, that was so dope as well, too. Make sure that y'all stay tuned. After party is up next. And if you are not a member, you want to become one soon. We'll see y'all in a bit.
You got a little longer, so it seems. I burned out, so to speak. Now come a little closer.
Yes, David. Thank you, David. Your affirmation for today, before David cuts the stream, I'm glad he reminded me, is I am going through a difficult time, but I will come out stronger than before. Okay, here we go. I am going through a difficult time, but I will come out stronger than before. Y'all gonna be great. Love y'all. Mean it, man. And we'll see y'all in the morning.
Words, no, I can't seem to find. But I'm really trying to get reason right and take your time and choose whether we been or yellow, whether we did or shallow.